How did a medieval Indian sultanate not just defeat, but utterly break the seemingly invincible Mongol war machine? This isn't just a story of one battle. It's the tale of a brilliant system that turned the tide of history. In 1299, the Mongol hordes, led by Kutlug Khwaja, thundered across the plains of India with one goal: to sack Delhi. For most rulers, the sight of 200,000 Mongol horsemen meant retreating behind castle walls and praying. But Sultan Alauddin Khalji was not most rulers. He made a daring choice: to meet the Mongols head-on in open combat at Kili, just outside Delhi. What followed was a clash that would shatter the myth of Mongol invincibility in India for the first time. But Delhi's victory wasn't won by brute force alone. Alauddin had a secret weapon, one forged not just on the battlefield, but in the markets and military barracks of his kingdom. This weapon was a revolutionary military and economic system that the Mongols simply had no answer for. So, what made Alauddin's army so different? Before him, Indian armies were often a hodgepodge of soldiers loyal to various nobles, paid with land grants, making them unreliable and disorganized. Alauddin changed everything. He created one of India's first standing, professional armies, paid directly by the state in cash. This meant every soldier's loyalty was to him, the Sultan, and not to some local lord who might switch sides. To ensure this new army was top-notch, he introduced a game-changing reforms. The first was DOC, the branding of horses. This stopped commanders from presenting low-quality horses for review and then swapping them for their personal use, a common form of corruption. The second was Chera, a detailed, descriptive roll of every soldier. This ensured that the men who were paid were the same ones fighting, preventing ghost soldiers from bloating the payroll. Suddenly, the Delhi Sultanate had a disciplined, professional fighting force that was consistently trained, equipped, and loyal to the central command. Now, having a massive professional army is great, but how do you pay for it without bankrupting the state? This is where Alauddin's genius truly shines. He knew he couldn't afford to pay his soldiers high salaries. So, instead of raising their wages, he lowered their cost of living. He implemented a strict system of market controls, overseen by a department called the Dewana Urasat. He fixed the price of every essential item, from grain and cloth to horses and slaves. Hoarding was severely punished, and a network of spies ensured that merchants stuck to the official prices. This meant a soldier's modest salary could go much further, allowing them to support their families and live comfortably. This economic stability was the engine that powered his military machine. While the Sultan's army was well fed and supplied, the Mongols, who relied on plundering the countryside, found themselves in a barren wasteland. Alauddin had implemented a scorched earth policy, denying them the resources they needed to survive. Their horses starved, their soldiers grew hungry, and their greatest strength, speed and surprise was crippled before the battle even began. With the stage set, the two armies finally met at Kili. The Mongols, masters of mobile warfare, expected to use their classic tactics, feigned retreats, flanking maneuvers, and swarms of horse archers to break the enemy lines. But Alauddin wasn't playing their game. He turned his army into a living fortress, his secret weapon on the field: war elephants. He used these massive beasts not just as shock troops, but as mobile fortifications, creating impenetrable walls of flesh and fury that disrupted the Mongol cavalry charges. Behind them, his army was organized into disciplined divisions, each with a clear commander, all under his central control. This rigid formation limited the Mongols' mobility and forced them into a grinding head-on fight they weren't prepared for. The battle was ferocious. At one point, one of Alauddin's best generals, Zafar Khan, broke formation in a reckless pursuit of the retreating Mongols and was tragically killed. In a normal army, this could have caused a panic and a total collapse. But Alauddin's army was different. He held the line, maintained discipline, and kept the central structure intact. The Mongols, unable to break his formation, and with their leader Kutlug Khwaja wounded, finally broke. For the first time, a massive Mongol invasion force was turned back, not by a fortress wall, but by a disciplined field army in open battle. They retreated, defeated, and demoralized. You'd think, after such a crushing defeat, the Mongols would have learned their lesson. But 4 years later, in 1303, they came back, this time catching Alauddin off guard. A large part of his army was away on a campaign in the south. This time, the Mongols didn't stop for a field battle. They made a beeline straight for a weakly defended Delhi. This was the moment of truth. Unable to meet them in the open, Alauddin did the next best thing. He retreated into his new, heavily fortified military camp at Siri. Siri wasn't a traditional city. It was a massive, entrenched camp designed for one purpose: to house and protect his army. Here, Alauddin employed a new strategy. He turned time itself into a weapon. The Mongols were masters of the swift campaign, not long, drawn-out sieges. They lacked the sophisticated siege engines and the logistical supply lines needed to sustain one. Alauddin knew this. He simply dug in, fortified his position, and waited. For 2 long months, the Mongols laid siege to Siri, but they couldn't break through. Their foraging parties were constantly harassed, their supplies dwindled, and the heat and disease of the Indian plains began to take their toll. The hunter had become the hunted. Frustrated, starving, and exhausted, the Mongols were forced to lift the siege and retreat once again, having gained nothing. This second invasion was the final straw for Alauddin. He had proven his system could work in both offense and defense. Now, he would make sure the Mongols never threatened Delhi again. He massively expanded and strengthened the Siri fortress, turning it into a formidable new capital. He repaired old forts along the invasion routes and built new ones, creating a deep defensive network. Most importantly, he established a dedicated, permanent border army whose sole job was to guard the northwestern frontier. This elite force, led by his most capable generals, actively patrolled the border, intercepting and destroying Mongol raiding parties before they could even get close to the heartland. The result was a stunning success. For the rest of Alauddin's reign, the Mongol threat that had terrorized Asia for a century was effectively neutralized in India. They never again managed to mount a serious invasion aimed at conquering northern India. Alauddin Khalji's legacy is a testament to the idea that victory isn't just won with swords and arrows, but with brilliant organization, economic foresight, and unbreakable discipline. He built a system that not only defeated the Mongols, but secured his empire for a generation. Thank you for watching. If you found this piece of history as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more stories of incredible military strategies, and ring that bell so you never miss an update. Let me know in the comments what other historical battles you'd like to see covered. See you next time.